Destiny 2's new expansion, Warmind, is to be congratulated by me for somehow pulling off being worse than Curse of Osiris. I don't know how Bungie pulled that off, but they did, and my fucking god do I feel like a complete moron for pre-ordering the D2 Season Pass when I pre-ordered Destiny 2. It speaks volumes when I'd rather be playing Solitaire than playing this tedious dog shit. Solitaire has more replay value than this expansion. Fucking solid! I went into this expansion expecting quite a bit for some reason because House of Wolves was decent and it fixed a lot of the problems Destiny 1 had. So I assumed that the Destiny 2 equivalent of House of Wolves would do the same, but it doesn't, unsurprisingly. Let's start off with the campaign and how just fucking terrible it is. I'm not exaggerating when I say that the campaign is 4 missions long and it took me an hour to complete. Yes. Just an hour. For $20. The story starts out with yet again referring to events of the main Destiny 2 campaign without actually addressing it. This is a problem that every Destiny DLC has had, and it's that the DLCs have no consistency in terms of story. They keep on mentioning the Traveler awaking, but does it actually mean anything? The short answer is no, it doesn't. At the start, we are introduced to a very new and unlikable character, Anna Bray. What's her backstory? What's her motive? What's her character like? Well, beats me because the game doesn't tell you shit. She does some cool shit we wish we could do, and then we're dropped off to do the same shit we always do. Point A to point B objective with some enemies sprinkled through the level to keep you from killing yourself. I wouldn't mind this if it had any challenge, but it doesn't. The enemies are dumb as hell and do fuck all damage. The new enemies, the Frozen Hive, are so similar to the original Hive that it was a waste of time for what little time it took to make them frozen. Wow, they have ice on them! Big whoop! The story continues and then we learn nothing about Rasputin and Anna Bray, but we are treated to classic vague monologues, my favorite. We play the same mission basically a couple more times, because the levels are so fucking simple and boring that they all blend together and they're all the exact same. Overall, the campaign is short and boring, the gameplay is nothing new, and the lack of mechanics to anything only adds to the dullness of it all. The story is clearly not meant for this tiny as hell campaign, as they don't explain very simple things that should be explained and developed. Not all of us are lore nerds, so at least do some explanation to what Rasputin is. The character development they give Anna Bray is non-existent. The final boss looks cool, but is devoid of any substance, as it's yet another bullet sponge. A Destiny classic. The campaign is so short, which sucks, because it's just like Rise of Iron, where it ends on something semi-interesting. But then it ends just like, oh, you were invested? Oh, you cared what was going on? Nah, fuck you, bro. Go to some public events. The only redeeming aspect of this campaign is that the shortness means that you don't have to experience one of the worst campaigns in the entire Destiny franchise for that long. Then we get the strikes. The strike might be worse in the story. Notice the lack of a plural because there's only one strike if you're on PlayStation. I do not count reskin story missions as strikes. That is the laziest shit I've ever heard of. The story mission wasn't even that good to begin with, so putting 3 people in won't fix it at all. As for what they did with the Crucible, it's the same. The ranking system is shallow and lacks any investment when all you get is some mediocre guns. Even if the guns were worth the grind, the Crucible itself isn't fun. Team shotting with decreased ability recharges make this game feel like another generic shooter, when it can be so much crazier and creative. Do crazy shit like put relics in it, or put more emphasis on vehicle combat. Then it'll be crazy shit that's unique, instead of this Call of Duty Titanfall 2 generic piece of ass. The new maps aren't particularly standout. I'm not going to give them credit for adding custom games into it, when it should have been in the game at launch, when it was in Destiny 1 2 years ago. The open world, like, on the plus side, is bigger than Mercury, but again, that's not saying much. The open world is still devoid of anything actually fun or interesting. You have rip-off Court of Oryx, but it's basically impossible until the later half of the incredibly slow and boring grind. Public events are still boring, patrols are still boring, and adventures are still boring. The open world is boring. Raid lairs were the most retarded idea I've ever heard of, and it really holds the raid for this expansion back from having a unique style and it being awesome. Instead of having a raid related to the expansion, we get this disconnected and short raid that scraps the potential that this expansion set up for it. We have been to the Leviathan 3 times. I was sick of it the first time, but raid layers just give Bungie an excuse to reuse the same shit all over again and give us this short as hell raid. The raid itself is fine. I haven't finished it myself because the barrier to entry is so fucking high this time around. It surprises me how little of a life people must have to have completed it in the time of me writing this. I hope to God they don't continue this raid layer shit for the future of Destiny. Like, I'll be around to see it. I'm not gonna fucking buy the next expansion. Fuck you. This expansion is, how do I put this? This expansion is what Curse of Osiris is to Destiny 2. Oh, wait a minute! I cannot think of a worse financial decision than wasting $20 on this expansion. Here, I'll recommend some games that are like 20 bucks, which are worth a lot more time than this expansion. You ready? Celeste, that was a pretty good game. There's Fury, that was also a very good game. Shovel Knight, I think it's a tad bit overrated, but it's still a decent game. What else? Oh yeah, I forgot. You can get Swimsuit in Persona 5. Overall, this expansion is very bland. It's not worth the $20 that it charges, and it does not fix the problems that Destiny has. If you're gonna buy an expansion, just... Nah, don't. Just don't. Because this one sucks. I give it a 4 out of 10. And I would say hopefully Bungie resolves it in the next expansion, but I'm not gonna fucking look at it unless the trailer shows space combat or some anime titty.